What is up with it, everybody? Live from the studios of WIUR from the Murphy Center at Iona University. Welcome back to Woolley Mammoth Mondays. I am your host, Cam Woolley, keeping you company for the next hour, talking sports. The Giants, we got the Jet trade deadline. We got Iona basketball with an impressive opening win, and then we're going to talk some puck to close it out. Let's start off with the Giants. This is where I got most of my stuff down. Another blown multi-possession lead in the fourth quarter at Chicago against the Bears. This is the fourth time, just going to get right into the stats, the fourth time this season the Giants have blown a 10 or more point lead this year, all of them on the road. Two of those losses have come with less than 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The game against the Broncos that I've talked about extensively, and then yesterday in Chicago. And given the win probabilities of each of those games, the chances of that happening are, I kid you not, I read this stat somewhere, I forgot who it was from, and I feel bad for not attributing this. The chances are 1 in 6 million of the Giants losing each of those games. They had 90% or more win probabilities in 3 of them. I think I'm referring to those 3 games where the Giants had a 90 or more percent chance to win. They lost all 3 of them. The chances of that happening are 1 in 6 million. And if they held on to all of those leads, the game against New Orleans, the game against Denver, the game against Dallas, and the game yesterday in Chicago, they'd be 6-4 and well in the playoff race. Might even have a wild card spot right now, given that one of those wins would have been against the Bears. And all this leads to is Brian Daboll. That man is a dead man walking. There is no way that this guy is hanging on to his job. And if you listen to the way he talks, you know, you can tell. That does not sound like a guy who is hanging on to his job. You listen to the answers he gives nothing outside of, well, you got to talk to the medical staff about that. Well, we're on the so-and-so. We're on to whatever team we're playing next week. I like the way he looked. I like the effort our guys gave. Just the most generic coach speak that you can think of. That does not sound like a guy who knows he is hanging on to his job. And this team just plays losing football. They don't know how to win. They're continuously making themselves a statistical anomaly for blowing games. As I referred to, the chances of the Giants blowing the 3 games where they had a 90% or more win probability is 1 in 6 million. The game against the Broncos, that is a lead that no team in NFL history has ever blown. You got to go back. The worst coaches in NFL history. Rich Kotite never blew a lead like that. But Brian Daboll did. And they're undisciplined, too. These stats here, you want to talk about bad numbers. These are from Anthony Rivardo of Empire Sports Media. The Giants are 3rd in total penalties, tied for 1st in delay of game penalties, tied for 7th in false starts, 2nd in defensive pass interference penalties, totaling 216 yards, I think. And 3rd in total penalty yardage. Those are drive killers. Those are penalties that take points off the board. Those are penalties that cost you games and momentum and possession of the football. As if you think about defensive penalties, there were 2 sacks yesterday that got negated. I think they were on 3rd down, too. Dexter Lawrence got a sack on 3rd down, and Abdul Carter got a sack on 3rd down. Both of those got negated by something like illegal contact or defensive holding to extend the drive. And speaking of defense, just look at the effort. Watch them try to shed blocks or make tackles. This team looks like they've given up, and they're just there for the check. These guys, they don't look like guys who are putting their bodies on the line for their coach, because they know that coach, he's going to be gone next year. They're not going to be playing for that coach. They might even not be playing for this team. At least most of them aren't. Those guys aren't even supposed to be starters in the first place. most of them. Like, I think run defense is a big effort thing. And the Giant run defense, just watch them try to tackle a running back on an outside run. Just if you want to beat these guys, just run off tackle. Do a simple toss play to the outside. Teams that a scheme or a play design that has been run since the 1920s, and the Giants can't figure out a way to stop it. And that falls on the coach. You look at effort, you think of playing to win. Brian Daboll has not gotten these guys ready. You talk about a guy losing the locker room. Brian Daboll has absolutely lost these guys. The only guy who I can say is actually trying on this team, who actually looks like he's putting in solid effort and is going beyond, is Jackson Dart. And I know Brian Burns is tied for the league lead in sacks. That's a guy who also, like, he's just really talented, but I think he's starting to check out a little. And I can't blame him. Look at the scheme. And I'll say this about Daboll. He's a good offensive mind, and he picked a good quarterback, and he's done a good job with him. I think once this team ends up becoming good, which I think they're not very far from becoming good, I think we might see a little bit of revisionist history on Brian Daboll. It's like, hey, he picked Dart. He developed him in his rookie year. He set him off in the right direction. But flat out, he can't lead a team, and he constantly coaches to not lose. I cannot name you a single time in the last 3 years where Brian Daboll has cooked up something where he was aggressive, where he was playing to win instead of be on the defensive or retreating. Not trying to force the matter and try and force the other team to make a play. And it's timid. He constantly coaches to not lose instead of win. And that is a recipe for blowing multi-possession leads in the fourth quarter. And Shane Bowen has a backwards scheme. And I've talked my head off about Shane Bowen. Everybody's talked their head off about Shane Bowen. Everybody wants this guy's head on a stick. And rightfully so. Not literally his head on a stick. I'm not wishing death on the guy. But he shouldn't have a job. At least not in this sport. He's more suited as somewhere else. I think he could be a fine manager at a car dealership maybe, but not a defensive coordinator or anywhere on a football team. Maybe a good offensive coordinator. I mean, they tried that with Matt Patricia, although I don't know if it's really worked. I can't remember the last time I heard of Matt Patricia. But here are some stats here. This was Caleb Williams on dropbacks on Sunday. Against zone coverage, 16 for 26, plus 0.10 EPA per pass, and 3.64 seconds on average time to throw. Against man coverage, which was run significantly less, 4 for 10, minus 0.85 EPA per pass, and only 2.88 seconds average time to throw. So the stats are there, and this is a failure on multiple levels. First, by Bowen for ignoring the stats, and maybe whoever the analytics staff is for not getting in his face and saying, hey, look at these numbers. This is this guy's stats against man coverage. We're doing significantly better at preventing big plays from happening against man coverage as opposed to you running zone. He's picking you guys apart. So, and I mean, you talk about the Giants as an organization. As a whole, that's a failure on every single level. But Shane Bowen in particular has done an awful job. I mean, just anybody else, dude, this is a talented enough group. They should be way better than this. And I know there's the defensive line. The players should be better. We expected them to be better. But you can't just rush 4 and drop 7 most of the time. Any offensive coordinator or coach or quarterback with any semblance of knowledge about how this game works will pick you apart. And that's what's happened. And I understand there have been injuries. But all it takes is just basic reading comprehension. When you look at these stats, Anybody who is in football is literate. You should be literate. I mean, in this country, the literacy rate's plummeting by the year. But if you're a defensive coordinator, if you're on an NFL coaching staff, chances are you know how to read. Shane Bowen doesn't. Or maybe he does, but he's just ignoring it because he's a moron. And honestly, either of those things could be true. If this defense gets a defensive coordinator with simple stat comprehension, this is a unit that can win you games. And I'm just saying, this is another notch on Brian Daboll. Imagine if Wink Martindale had this group. The aggressive blitzes, playing press man. You think this defense wouldn't be eating quarterbacks alive? Abdul Carter should be lining up on the edge every single play. I saw on a 3rd and 9, this might have been the worst. I saw Brian Burns drop into coverage on 3rd and 9. Are we being serious? I think we're past the point for questions, but you cannot possibly think that is a good idea. And whoever does think that's a good idea should be out of a job. And while we're at it, who the hell is the athletic trainer? It seems like every year we lose all of the guys who actually help us to injury. And whoever that guy is, whoever's in charge of the medical staff or the athletic trainer, should be working anywhere but in the medical field. Because it seems like every single year, the good players on this team are the only ones who get hurt. And we're left without a secondary. We're left without our star wide receiver. We're left without our star running back. And we're left just with the coaches who already suck, trying to put together a game plan with a borderline like FCS team by week 6. That's not a winning strategy. And I think it's an organizational thing when it comes to teams who have injuries. Look at teams like the Giants, and then look at teams like the Eagles. The Giants deal with injuries every year, and the Eagles don't. I think there's something organizational when it comes to injuries. And all of what I just said about this coaching staff and the whole guys who are in charge of making the personnel win makes me think that Joe Schoen should stay, or at least I wouldn't mind him staying. Because as I said before, if the Giants hang on to those multi-possession leads, they're 6-4 and probably in a playoff spot. Joe Schoen assembled a personnel and a group of players who could be in a playoff spot. We could be looking at this team very differently if they hang on to those leads. And these players that have been assembled, people have said that, hey, this makes the Giants a prime destination to be a spot for a GM or a prime spot to be a coach. But the core group of guys who, in question, were brought in or retained by Joe Schoen. Jackson Dart, Cam Scatteraboo, Malik Neighbors, Abdul Carter, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, Cordell Flott, Paulson Adebo, Javon Holland, Bobby Okereke, Tyler Newman to an extent. I mean, I'm in terms of the underperformance on defense, I'm taking everything with a grain of salt until they have a different guy running them. But if you look at the offense, Andrew Thomas was retained by Joe Schoen on a pretty good contract. Jermaine Illuminor was brought in. John Runyon was brought in. And I think over the offseason, you can throw some money at some interior linemen. John Michael Schmitz has done a pretty good job. He hired Carmen Brasillo, who's the only guy on this coaching staff who I don't want like shot out on a missile into space. And he's learned from his mistakes. He has a good process. All of the moves that he made in the offseason last year, I was like, yeah, I understand it, except for a few of them. I do think he's made a lot of mistakes on the kicker. I think he's mangled that situation. But The good over the last couple of years has far outweighed the bad. The drafting has gotten a lot better. The free agency signings have gotten a lot better. His trades have gotten a lot better. And overall, I think he's assembled a core of players who, if you give them another offseason of draft picks, another offseason of trades, another season of free agency, and bring in a good coach, bring in a good defensive coordinator to help these guys win and coach them to a point where they can actually win these games and win in these situations, I think Joe Shane's done a pretty solid job, at least compared to the guys who John Mara would hire. Because I don't trust John Mara to pick up a guy who has a better understanding of player personnel than Joe Shane. And I know people have problems with him, but look at Howie Roseman. People in Philly wanted him hung at multiple points throughout his tenure. I remember in 2020, oh my God. And that was after he won a Super Bowl. People in Philadelphia hated Howie Roseman. But look at him now. He's viewed as one of, if not the best executive in maybe all of sports. I think the personnel Joe Shane has assembled is good enough to win games. They just need the right coaching. Now, on to one of the guys in that personnel, and this will be all for the Giants segment. Jackson Dart. I mean, I don't know what else I can say about him. I love this guy. I keep loving him. He's a one-man offense. He's the first quarterback in NFL history to have 5 straight games with a rushing touchdown. You want to go down the list of guys who, of the all-time great scramblers, who haven't done that? Randall Cunningham never did that. Steve Young never did that. Michael Vick never did that. Cam Newton never did that. And so far in their careers, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen have never done that. 5 straight games with a rushing touchdown for a quarterback. This guy is an elite runner. And look at most starters in the league right now and ask yourself if Jackson Dart is better. Chances are you're going to say yes. Look at the middle bit of starters in the league who are on good teams. Look at, in terms of raw talent and maximizing what they have around them. Put Jackson Dart on the Colts. I think he does a bit better than what Daniel Jones is doing right now. We've seen Daniel Jones on the Giants. It doesn't work. Put Jackson Dart on the Colts. That team might be undefeated. Put Jackson Dart on the Seahawks and put Sam Darnold on the Giants. I think Jackson Dart does better than Sam Darnold. I know it's a little crazy to say, but I think that's the case. Put Jackson Dart on the... Who am I thinking of? Put Jackson Dart on the Bears. Compare him to Caleb Williams. I think he does a lot better. I think his decision-making process is a lot better than Caleb Williams. I think Jackson Dart's a better quarterback than him. Put Jackson Dart on, put Jackson Dart on the Atlanta Falcons. He's definitely better than Michael Penix. Put Jackson Dart on the 49ers. I think he's better than both Brock Purdy and Mac Jones. Put Jackson Dart on the Arizona Cardinals. I think he's better than Jacoby Brissett. I think he does a lot better with Marvin Harrison as his number 1 wide receiver and Trey McBride as his tight end. I think Jackson Dart puts up some pretty good numbers with those guys. And so on and so forth. The point continues. Put Jackson Dart on the Carolina Panthers. Jackson Dart on... What's another good team? Put Jackson Dart on... Sorry, I'm taking up too much dead air with this. But anyways, I think he's a top 12 guy in this league right now. And just wait. Oh, just you wait until he gets better coaching and better weapons. The New York Giants currently have the 3rd overall pick in the draft right now. They have their pick of the litter at wide receiver. Imagine Carnell Tate or Jordan Tyson getting drafted by the New York Giants. Pair him up with Malik Neighbors. You want to talk about the guys who are open? Oh boy. You got me salivating over some of these guys. I'm not gonna lie, bro. Jackson Dart, this guy is amazing. And the one job this organization has is to protect him. And I know he's hurt right now. He has a concussion. I think, dude, that can't become a problem. That just can't. That's a major issue. Major issue. And they got to protect him, honestly, from himself until he learns to protect his body. And I know, like, Josh Allen had those problems earlier in his career. He fixed it up. And I think Dart is intelligent enough, just as a human being, to fix that up. I think he's aware enough. I think he's going to fix that. But he has that competitive nature that I think he might just end up like Baker Mayfield and just constantly lower the shoulder and try to get those extra couple yards. And the Giants might just have to live with it. And honestly, I think Baker Mayfield's a pretty apt comparison for Jackson Dart. I think if Dart reaches the ceiling, I think he ends up like a Baker Mayfield type. If he hits his ceiling, and I think he can get there. I've seen no reason to think otherwise. He's just awesome. Awesome. I love this guy. And you look at, he's got aura. He's got so much aura and the eye black. As a Star Wars guy, I love how he's just embracing the Anakin Skywalker archetype of just the like tragic hero who's going through a lot. And you can find a lot of mirror images between Jackson Dart and Anakin Skywalker in the prequels. Just like the Jedi Order's failing him and he's so talented, but they don't know what to do with him. And it's just amazing. And I can't wait to see him develop. I can't wait to see him with better guys. I just can't. All right, boy, we went on about the Giants here, folks. We're going to go to a little break. When we get back, I'm going to talk about how much I hated the Jets trade deadline. But that, we're going to save it for when we get back. Back after this.
Untouchable, unstoppable.
This is WIUR Sports Radio.
Hi, I'm Robbie Basil, president of WIUR Radio, and I hope you're enjoying today's show. Have you ever wanted to call the biggest games, the biggest moments for the biggest names for Iona Athletics? Then the newly founded WIUR Sports Radio is the place to be. Launched in January of 2025, our goal is to try and get broadcasters here at Iona an opportunity to learn, succeed, and get a chance to be on air. From getting to call the big moments at the hack.
Dinkins trying to go to the rack. Denied. Yafet Mundi.
To seeing the crack of the bat at City Park.
The line drive into left field, around third, and it kicks away. The Gales are going to win it in 10.
We make those moments happen on our brand new WIUR Sports Radio platform on Mixer. If you're interested, feel free to reach out to me via email or to the rest of my e-board to join the club. We are WIUR Sports Radio, the new home of Iona Athletics. Now, back to the show on WIUR, Iona University Radio.
All right, we're back. WIUR Sports Broadcasting. They were on the call on Friday night at Hines. Eddie Virgil did a fantastic job. I had a recent run-in with him. He's a cool dude. Cool guy. Great play-by-play commentator. Great calls. He does a fantastic job. Everybody at WIUR on the sports broadcasting does just a bang-up job over there. Gonna talk some Jets. Big trade deadline. They won again. I mean, that's fun. But here's why I think it's worse in the long run for the Jets to be winning these games. Because I called this a while ago. That when the Jets were 0-7, they had nothing to play for. I called that they were gonna win themselves out of the number one pick. And this is exactly what they're doing. You have nothing to play for. You just traded your two franchise cornerstones on defense. You have no reason to win these games outside of what? Pride, the culture. Yeah, because the culture, oh boy, the culture's been great over for gangrene. Oh, amazing, amazing culture. And a lot of people like what the Jets did at the trade deadline. I hate it. The objective this year, after starting 0-7 and losing any semblance of hope that you had for the year, was to bottom out and tank for the first overall pick and have your stab at any quarterback you want, whether that be Ty Simpson or Fernando Mendoza. Take your pick, whoever you think is better. I think we're going to have a better idea of who the better guy is by, like, say, February after bowl season and the CFP. We're going to have a better idea. It's just November right now. But again, New York football fans, we're used to looking at draft prospects in November, so we're going to watch this evolve. But whoever it is, you need to tank for your pick of the litter at the quarterback position. And they're screwing it up. Again, like I said they would. The Jets have done this multiple times. Remember 2020? They won those 2 meaningless games. That was the difference between drafting Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. Yeah, look how that's worked out. I mean, Trevor Lawrence hasn't been great. That's another guy who I think Jackson Dart is better than. I think Jackson Dart's way better than Trevor Lawrence. But the Jets, they're not. I think they're grossly mismanaging this situation. And when you talk about the quarterback, the whole point of this process and how the roster should be built was about next year and having that hypothetical quarterback there and surround him with the most talent possible. And trading Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams deprives said hypothetical franchise quarterback on the roster to help him if he somehow pans out, which, knowing the Jets, let's be honest, it probably wouldn't. They'd make the wrong choice because they're the Jets. And you're setting back the timeline for maybe drafting guys who could be close to what you have. Look at the first round pick they got for Sauce Gardner. That's not going to be a very valuable pick. Look at the Colts right now. Look at the way Jonathan Taylor is running. That pick is going to be at the highest in the mid to late 20s. That team is on a straight shot for the AFC Championship game. That pick is going to be not very worth it, at least in the grand scheme of first rounders. That pick is not going to be valuable. That pick doesn't hold a ton of capital for trading for guys or trading up. Because, of course, I mean, I guess the Titans are in line to get the number 1 pick. They already have a quarterback who I kind of like in Cam Ward. He's shown a lot of physical attributes. You want to talk about a guy who's getting screwed. Cam Ward, mod on. Oh, my God, are they doing a hatchet job with him? But you're setting back the timeline by multiple years because it doesn't matter on what side of the ball that talent is on. When you draft a young quarterback who you think could be your franchise guy, you got to put him in the best situation possible. And I know in some cases, we just talked about Jackson Dart doing well in a terrible situation. That's a rare case. That is a very, very rare case of a guy being an elite talent, doing a great job, and just being really, really good at football. That doesn't happen often. And again, it's the Jets. All of it boils down to just the Jets being the Jets. And you're setting back the timeline. And if he does work out, after the rookie year, you have 4 years of the guy on a rookie contract to build a roster that is good enough. And unless you have godlike scouting, which the Jets don't, you're setting back that guy by 2 franchise cornerstones on defense. And I know Quinnen Williams is probably going to leave, and I know Sauce Gardner's contract had a stipulation in there that made it so he could be traded. And I can't blame his agent for putting that in there because it's like, hey, dude, you're the Jets. My client's not going to want to play for you guys. And they traded the contract, and you know what, whatever. I guess that's good. But why did you even sign him in the first place if you were just planning to trade him? Oh, my God. My God. If they win that trade, it's going to be by accident, the way the Giants won the Odell Beckham trade by happening to draft Dexter Lawrence and having him happen to turn into an elite defensive tackle. But the Jets, I don't think that's going to be the case. And you're going to be depriving another young quarterback who this organization drafts at really good players who can help him win. And that is why I hate what the Jets did at the trade deadline. And I mean, poor Breece Hall. You want to talk about a guy who's going to walk for nothing? Dude, Breece Hall. I mean, I guess you can franchise tag him and trade him in the offseason. That's something you can maybe do. But again, like the franchise tag, you're going to be eating cap. And that's another guy who you're depriving your young quarterback of. Breece Hall would maybe be a little helpful, wouldn't you think? Anyways, that's enough on the Jets. I don't really have a lot on them. I just wanted to comment on that. I still think Aaron Glenn's a clown. I still think that dude, they're the Jets. I don't know what else you want me to say about these guys. They're the friggin' Jets. Oh, boy. All right. On to a bit of a happier thing. Let's talk some Iona hoops. Men's basketball opened up on Friday night. Big win against Hofstra. Huge win. Statement win. Folks, they haven't beaten Hofstra since 2021. Not even the Walter Clayton, Danish Jenkins, and he who shall not be named as head coach. That team could not beat them. Two guys who are NBA guards could not beat that team. And Dan Giroux, in his first career game, he ended up beating them. They led by as many as 23. That game was out of reach by the first half. And I know they let him creep back in, and I was a little scared. I was at that game. I was thinking, oh, God, here we go again with the blown leads. But they held on. And in my brief time watching them, and I don't know enough about college basketball to know about the recruits they brought in the offseason. But in my brief time watching these guys, they can flat out score. 81 points. The headliner, who everybody's talking about, CJ Anthony, the transfer from Cincinnati, who's punching down a bit, 25 points on the night, 83% from the field. This guy can shoot, and I love the energy he brings. When every time he would hit a three-pointer, he would gesture back to the student section. He'd be making signs with his hands. Oh, dude, he's so awesome. And that building, it always rocks. I say it all the time. I bring up basketball here. That building, it doesn't house a lot of people, but that house, it was packed. And it was rocking and rolling from the opening tip-off. And we had a reason to pop off. I mean, that Sabali dunk ended up being second on the SportsCenter top 10. And that was sick, too. And the media guys here, they got a great shot of it. People who I know, just a tremendous job. And the team as a whole, they shot 45%. So my takeaway, these guys can shoot. And for a first-year coach who I didn't really know what to expect out of him, he did say he wants to make positionless basketball. That was his kind of philosophy, kind of a pro-style modern offense. And this roster, it looks very competitive. And I know the standard here is very high. You need to win early. We saw that with the last guy who was here. If you don't get results immediately, you're getting canned. But they look very competitive. I like what I've seen out of them. And I think they can compete in the MAC. They play aesthetically pleasing offense that is very fun to watch. And I think they're far ahead of schedule. Again, I think they can compete in the conference this year. Maybe get another bid at the dance. Who knows? This offense, they can score. And I think the weaknesses are fairly obvious. The rebounding and defense are a little concerning. But again, you can't solve all of the problems in 1 year of recruiting. But I think Giroux can bring in a big at some point, probably next year, to help on the defense and help on the glass and grab the rebounds. And I like the effort that they showed, especially in the first half where they were holding them to not really shooting very well. And you could just chalk that up to a cold streak for Hofstra, but I loved what I saw out of the effort. bottom line is the coach, these guys, and you look at the post-game interview that the great Liz Riccio did, my producer over at IUTV for Gale Zone, who does a fantastic job in her post-game interview. I saw the guys all huddling around him. This is a coach who has guys who are ready to play for him and are rallying and just doing a tremendous job. And I'm looking forward to seeing these guys develop. They can score, and they can score at will. That is my takeaway. Big game on Friday night against Fordham, another team in a conference a level above them. And we've seen they can beat Hofstra. They can dominate a team like Hofstra, who kept it close against UCF. And I'm excited to see him against Fordham. Big game here. Day Reeves making his return to the Hines Athletic Center. That's going to be very, very energetic. And I'm very excited to watch. But anyways, we're gonna throw to another break here. When we get back, we're gonna talk some hockey. We're gonna talk Rangers, Devils, and maybe a little bit of Islanders too. When we get back, here's Morgan Beastie of the Ionian.
This is WIUR Radio.
Hi, I'm Morgan Beastie from the Ionian, and I hope you're enjoying today's show. Are you looking for the latest scoop on campus news, sports, and more? Check out the Ionian University's very own award-winning student newspaper. We keep you up to date with everything happening on and off campus. Want to know about the big game, the latest campus event? It's all in the Ionian. Join the conversation. Read, write, and get involved. Visit www.theionian.org or pick up a copy around campus. Stay informed, stay connected. Now, back to WIUR, Iona University Radio.
All right, we're back. Gonna end the show off here with some puck talk. Starting off with the New York Rangers here, and my God, these guys are confusing. I got one question for you. Dude, what the hell are you? Just tell me. What are you guys? You're terrible at home. You haven't won a single game at home. New York City elected a new mayor before the New York Rangers won a game at Madison Square Garden this season. Luke Dolan just put in chat, the New York Jets won a home game before the New York Rangers. That's sad. Very, very sad. That's a terrible stat. If the Jets win at home before you, that's a big problem. And let's check. This is a thing I want to check every week. You know who still has the team leading goals? Taylor freaking Radish on a team with Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad, JT Miller. The goal scorer on this team is Taylor Radish with 5 goals. 3 of them coming in one game against the Sharks. The one game where they've scored at home. And of course, it was the one game where Igor Shesterkin had a stinker. And the real confusing part about this is that look at them on the road. Look at the wins they've had on the road. They've beaten the Montreal Canadiens in regulation, a very impressive team. That team, you want to talk about a wagon. My God, that team has got some spark to them. Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield. The way I talk about Nick Suzuki, he's the Nico Hischier of Nico Hischiers, if that makes sense. You got Lane Hudson, Ivan Demidov. Again, I mentioned Cole Caulfield, who I've always loved. I love Cole Caulfield. So many guys on that team who are just really, really good. And the Rangers went into their barn and beat them in regulation. You know who else they beat? They came back and beat the Edmonton Oilers in overtime in their barn. A team that made it to the Cup final the last 2 years. A team with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on it. They beat them in their own building. And then, most recently, they beat the Detroit Red Wings in their own barn. A team that is off to a really hot start. A team that's looking like they're going to make the playoffs. Finally, the Yzer plan starting to materialize a bit and maybe work out. And another confusing part is that, and then right after the game against the Red Wings, they get caved by the Islanders at Madison Square Garden, 5-0. Bo Horvat tied for the league leading goals, and the Islanders. I mean, that team, I don't know what to make of them. They're young, they're talented. Matthew Schaefer, my God, that guy's good. But and Bo Horvat making a good case to be an Olympian this year. But the Rangers, that's another team they got caved in by in their own building. So I don't know what to make of them. Although, hey, if they make the playoffs, chances are they're going to be a wild card team, and they're not going to have home ice for any of the games. So maybe they can make a little run with a hot goalie and winning all their games on the road. So whatever. And another confusing stat about the Rangers, and this is what leads me to believe that they're probably going to bounce back, just judging by the numbers. They have the second best expected goal percentage in the NHL, but they can't finish. This is the polar opposite of the 2022 and 24 teams who had awful possession metrics and awful expected metrics, but they just won a bunch of games because they had opportunistic goal scoring and goaltending. And they won 50 plus games and they looked like a team of destiny in the playoffs because they just knew how to win. But this year, this is a team that controls possession, a team that controls scoring chances, but they just flat out can't finish them and win games, at least in their own building. And to be honest, this team could either win the Stanley Cup or win the draft lottery, and neither result would really shock me. Because there's a lot that's just really confusing, and it's convoluted, and it's just a nightmare. Well, not really a nightmare, but it's just confusing the hell out of me. I don't know what to make of them. And it kind of scares me. As a Devils fan, I don't want these guys to get hot because I've seen what can happen when these guys get hot. They have a horseshoe jammed up there, you know what, and it doesn't really bode well for me, at least. Anyways, enough about the Rangers. Let's talk about the New Jersey Devils a bit before we wrap up today's show. As for the New Jersey Devils, I mean, they had a bit of a weird week. They had the West Coast road trip that really didn't work for them. They're not really doing well on defense, but that's maybe because the entire right side of their defense is like hurt right now. So I don't know. Pesci's hurt. Dougie Hamilton's the only guy who's healthy. Wait. Dougie Hamilton's hurt right now. Never mind. Jonathan Kovacevic is hurt. But again, they're winning games. The guys are contributing as expected. You got Jack Hughes with 10 goals, 18 points in 15 games. Nobody's really popping off the stat sheet right now. Nobody's really close to leading the league in goals or points. I mean, Jack Hughes, I think he's close to leading the league in goals, but I know that was like a week ago where he was tied for the league leading goals. I'm sure somebody's like widened that gap a lot. I think Cole Caulfield has the league leading goals now. Correct me if I'm wrong. But again, they got the shootout win against the Penguins at home, a game that they had no right winning. I mean, that's pretty nice, though. Having a shootout win. I mean, my God, I can't remember the last time the Devils were consistent in the shootout. It was a 2-rounder, too. Paul Cotter, who's honestly, if you want to go back to this guy's basically just Jacob Josephson. He contributes really nothing but slick mitts in the shootout. You want to talk about a one-tool player in hockey? That's his tool. He's got silky mitts, but he doesn't have the skill set to get in situations where he can use said silky mitts, except in the shootout, and he did a really good job. And then Jesper Bratt scored, and then Jake Allen, who was the only reason the Devils won that game, he ended up standing tall. Anyways, just keep winning, stay healthy, reinforce the team as needed by the trade deadline, get to April, and just for the love of God, find a way to beat Carolina. Because we know what this team is. We know what they need. We know them pretty well. We know what the standard for success is. You got to go on a run. You're in a cup window. You got some guys on team-friendly deals. You got to maximize that. Tonight, they got a game against the New York Islanders. I think that game, that game could be pretty interesting. I think that game could go either way. The Devils aren't really playing that well right now, but they're winning games, so I don't care. And the Islanders, they're playing pretty well too. So that's all right. Anyways, that'll be all from me today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Gonna let you off here around lunchtime. Anyways, this has been Woolley Mammoth Mondays from WIUR. I am Cam Woolley saying take care and have a good one.